Dad Pod?
Just a video thing as well.
Doesn't have a name.
Podcast?
Midlife crisis.
Paddy Daddy.
Midlife crisis.
DADCAST?
That's not bad, actually, yeah.
Right. We've got only about like 25 minutes in this podcast, so I apologise to you. When you're downloading, you're like, oh, there must be a problem with this because it's a very short one. But Nathan has some golf douchebags to catch up with or to be the king of.
A actual regular podcast, as we like to call it.
Oh,
Golf
harsh.
Weekly, check it out, people.
Yeah, whatever. So an email. Do not read out my name or email, please and thank you. Okay, I'm definitely going to obey that this time. Hi all. Sorry, I just want to say, right, to both of you, the lads haven't heard this yet, so we want to continue to solicit correspondence from people.
Don't be judgy, is it?
Take your judgy head off now, Adrian. Take your judgy head off. It's a pity Dave's not here, but in a way I'm glad Dave's not here.
Okay.
It's a real pity. I wish we could film Dave listening to this episode of the podcast when he hears me.
Oh, we would just tell him not to listen.
Okay, and we do it
if it's
again.
that good, we can do it again and get the feedback from our listeners.
Physical condition or something?
This is going to be a two-part episode. This is
Right.
But I like where the correspondence is going in terms of the level of detail
Okay.
that we're getting from people.
You've really built this up.
Yeah.
Firstly, an amazing show, and thank you so much for the laughs, tears, and honesty over the last year. I have to say, this is my favourite part of the week, or month, or whenever released on Spotify. Yeah, sorry about that. It's funny how you can feel close to a group of lads without ever meeting them. It feels natural to message you with my current issue. Well, thanks very much for that, and we appreciate it, honestly. I have 2 kids under the age of 2 and recently went away for a stag in Europe. This is
Sorry. For anybody listening to us on the podcast,
Sorry,
as you read that, Nathan's face contorted into a, ooh. Where is this going?
Well, Nathan might be right. We're 10 seconds in, and already we've been blown off course, right? I have 2 kids. I have 2 kids under the age of 2 and recently went away for a stag in Europe. This was a 3-day bender, and as you can imagine, with 20 lads across Ireland, Dublin, Cork and Kerry, the devilment was at 90. My wife and I would have a very open mind and like to discuss sex and fantasies, and often talked about going to Amsterdam and strip clubs, etc. So when I returned and she asked me if I went to one, I proceeded with yes. And then when she asked me if I got a dance, I proceeded with yes, of course, but someone else bought it for me. This developed into a very long discussion / shutting out and tears about how dare you and how could you when I'm all alone with 2 children and you're pretty much cheating on me, in brackets, which I was not. So that's shouting out in tears about. I then found out that she has been diagnosed with baby blues, depression, but didn't want to tell me as thought I wouldn't go on the stag. She awaits counselling and medication, and to be honest, I'm really worried and concerned. I will not be going in any more stags for sure, and going to improve a lot to help and focus more on her. Have any of your partners had the baby blues or depression after birth? I would love some insight into this or hear you guys chat about it. Apologies for the backstory. Thought it might give some added context as reading back, not sure. Feel free to read out or not if you want. Thanks for everything. You are true support to us dads out there. And hopefully you will all be on the road soon. So hopefully we will be on the road soon. I was like, right, what to do?
Well, you tell us, Ger.
What do you mean?
I don't know. It seems to have hit home.
No.
Jesus Christ, your man, like... By the way, I'm
Sorry, I just got... What expression are you casting me there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Prick.
I'm definitely... What am I? I'm just disappointed that you would think that I would be judgy about this scenario.
I just needed to make sure that it was... Anyway.
No judgment.
There's no real way to be judgy,
Judgment to have.
If what happened is what we've been told what happened, you're not overly at fault here.
It does seem it's funny, and this is actually something I suppose that we have come back to very regular in this podcast, is the thing that you think is this thing that doesn't happen to very many people, and then the more conversations you have, you realise that actually it's a somewhat frequent occurrence.
There's 2 aspects to this story. There's the getting a lap dance on a stag, and then there's the...
I'm assuming that
postnatal
he's not
depression.
looking for our guidance on whether that's his own...
Is he not looking for his guidance on whether or not he should have told the missus?
I think
Well,
he's-
in hindsight, I think we can all agree he shouldn't have.
that's his own... Let him go on... I'm not going to use the...
No, I think that
Don't do what
that's
he
more
wants.
a lesson we can all learn. That though he thought they had a very open mind of these kind of things, when in various they had discussed both going.
Yeah, that's
So
a
she
different
would have
scenario.
been
it's
supervising.
Yes.
It's a I would think that it's a very different scenario. Anyway, I don't really. I'm assuming that's not why he's actually really in contact with us about the other predicament that he finds himself in. It does seem like they're like the difficulty we have with these discussions, and I'll fully explain myself now in a second. That obviously, as I maybe better than anybody in this podcast knows, we are at certain points then required to be giving about our other halves without their consent. Is probably not ideal. As I said, I've learned this lesson the harsh way. My wife is she's a fine sleeper, by the way, and there's no issues in that regard. But yeah, there was definitely we haven't been through that. I suppose is the first thing to say. I think there's an element of. I'd spoken before about the, maybe I should just leave these as droplets in the wind and never really go back to them if they don't draw much attention, but the conversation that we would have had at one point about how she resented the fact that I wasn't around, that's probably like indicative of that thing where you're at home all the time with the kids and like it's not something that happens very often in your life. You question wrongly, obviously, I would think in a lot of degrees, your self-worth, I suppose, because you've defined yourself as one thing in your life and then suddenly you've gone off to this other thing, and while it's the most valuable thing you could possibly be doing, it isn't the thing that's defined you for the previous number of years that you've existed on the planet. So that would have been really my only experience with anything around that. Like, it is difficult, I think, for any of us to be overly giving in this regard, short of actually having our other halves in to talk about their experiences of it or their friends' experience of it, because it does seem to be something that actually is more frequent than I certainly would have appreciated before we started to have kids and then started to have those types of conversations.
Yeah, I definitely talked to friends who had been through it, and it wouldn't have been something that people would have brought up, but certainly there was, like, you know, when people say there should be no stigma about this stuff, there shouldn't be, but then people still feel a little bit ashamed and a little bit embarrassed talking about mental health issues. And yet, generally, assuming, you know, you've picked your audience right, most people are going to be fairly decent listeners when it comes to that.
Yeah, but I think, particularly with that, it's one of the more difficult ones to talk about because it's meant to be the happiest time of your life.
Yeah, I would hope that bullshit has changed, though. The whole, like, oh, this is amazing, everything's always great, children are brilliant, and it's like, hang on a second, like, there were certainly periods early on when we were completely overwhelmed. Now, it's much easier for the man, especially if the woman is breastfeeding. It's like you're not awake all night. You do get some sleep. Like, you are not going through the pain of the latch every time there's a pain for the latch. Like, I don't know if ours ever reached the scenario where, first off, obviously go and get help, as much possible help as you can. Go and speak to the GP. Speak to the GP as a couple if that's helpful. If it's not helpful, you know, if you're the mother of your kids wants to be on her own for that part, then, you know, but definitely if you possibly can, the recommendation would be for everybody to go in and have that experience and keep having that talk and kind of check in and monitor regularly what's going on. There was definitely strains of madness that I remember early on where, like, I remember being out one time and coming home and it was like, where have you been? I was like, I was just out. I was at the All-Stars, actually.
It's like the Champions League final, where have you been?
And I've been at the airport for 3 days.
The baby wouldn't sleep.
Yeah.
And, like, there was just when is that there? October, November. So this is very early on, like, and the baby wouldn't sleep. And so there's just this level of fatigue that's built up. Like, by the time baby 3 rolls around, it's like, just let it cry. But you don't know this stuff. Now, they're on the second baby. With the second baby under 2, like, that is chaos. That's absolute chaos.
You're properly at it at that point, yeah. Like, and I think you're right about that sort of speaking to people. The audience point is crucial, like, because I think that you can talk to a lot of different people and some of them will just be those people who'll tell you that, well, you know, sure, this is such an amazing thing, great time of your life, why would you be, well, you know, what's possibly wrong with you? But, like, I think particularly when you talk to people who are in the midst of it, Nathan, to borrow a phrase of yours, it's a far better sounding board than
What's a better sounding word?
if you're actually talking to people who are in the midst of. Let's come up with another expression.
You make it sound sexual.
I was talking to somebody last
I
night.
don't ever even remember using the term in the midst of it.
You what? The last podcast we recorded was one of the central themes to it was you being in the midst of something.
Okay.
Oh.
I was talking to somebody about that last night, actually. Somebody who themselves is in the midst of being a recent father, how you Neil, and he was saying how he'd been doing the bottles and listening to Nathan being in the midst of a semi, and it kept him entertained.
Right.
Anyway, it's your audience, isn't it? Right? Like that's the thing, that pick and choose the people you find, and I think that like what'll happen is you'll end up speaking to hopefully more and more people. Come away from the table.
Sit into the desk mics there, lads.
All right. You'll end up speaking to more and more people about it, and at some point or another you'll get somebody will say something to you that will resonate for you, and you'll be able to take that and it'll work for you, and that's the value of, I suppose, speaking to people about it.
Yeah, you definitely feel much better when you talk to people about stuff.
Yeah.
But you can't prepare yourself for it either. It's like the sheer exhaustion, particularly having, we had 2 under 18 months at one stage, and the levels of stress, as you said, the resentment that is built up, and as you say, you do enjoy going to work. Then you're kind of
I feel guilty about it, but
you feel a little bit, but you still go every single time. But you just can't think clearly, and it's I do remember those nights coming back, and the one thing which I may have mentioned before, the one book I read in advance, which was a sort of relaxed look at parenting from a father's point of view, was where he spoke about just wanting to punch the wall, but not in anger at the child, in anger at himself that he couldn't cope with the child. And the amount of times I had that feeling when the kids were young, where they just wouldn't, you're absolutely as tired as you've ever been in your life. They just will not stop crying. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. You got to be up. There's no way of, you can't rationalize that at the time. Most people thankfully wake up the next morning, it's fine. But if it's not, and that's continuing, the burden that puts on you.
yeah.
So did you hit the wall? What did you do? How did you get better at it?
I always found that you'd have 2 or 3 bad nights, and then you might just have one good night, and that'd just get you through for a little while.
Yeah.
That even now still, if she's awake during the night, she'll have 2 or 3 bad, and then she'll sleep through the night, and it's I've had one night. Bit of sweet relief. And you do definitely get used to the tiredness.
Yeah.
You somehow get used to having 5 hours sleep.
Yeah, I think as well, all this stuff about mental health is you have to work at it. It's not going to be something that just looks after itself. It doesn't blah, 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 it's way better. Now, you get better at coping with different things, but, and obviously, again, we don't know the individual aspects of this case and how bad it is, if it comes and goes, if it's there the whole time, but you definitely have to create the environment for yourself to be able to help yourself. So you need to be able to exercise. You need somebody to come in and take the 2 kids for a little while. You definitely need some time alone with just the 2 of you. You need not to be fighting about going lap dancing on a stag.
Yeah, that would be a good.
That's
that's really a big element of it, isn't it? Just that, because the one's general capacity to deal with maintaining your mental health, right? Forgetting about the children is difficult enough, and then you'll have that into the mix. Very tough. Definitely that point about at some point having some breathing space away from the kids. It's probably not a bad one, but I mean, like you say, it's us dishing out the advice is probably not what this couple needs, I would say. It sounds like they're taking the right steps and addressing it as they should. But I definitely would think that sort of a little bit of time away from the kids, short bursts, get your head a bit of space if it's a sleep that you need, or a night out, or
Yeah, and the other thing is not to be overwhelmed by the fact that you've got a diagnosis. That's not like a death sentence here either. It's okay, this is the issue and we're dealing with it. It's actually a good thing that you get diagnosed with something, as opposed to, I don't feel great, what's going on, why has this happened? It's okay, I'm seeking help. There's a pathway for us to get better. And because it happens to so many other people, that's the other thing, is that there's a wealth of material out there.
Wonder, should we get, we haven't had a woman on the podcast yet.
I mean, it's called the DADCAST.
I know, but I wonder, should we...
Well, have a Mamscast, let them at it.
To tell us how to behave.
We were on the, remember we were on
the Mamcast, yeah.
Yeah.
And you were never asked back again. It's funny that, isn't it?
Well...
it was a grilling.
Didn't go well for us.
We were, it was up to us, if I recollect, to justify our, the existence of others to begin with. And I'm not sure we did it all that well.
No. For some reason, we got the blame for all of the issues of their partners.
Yeah.
Why do you do these things? don't know. We just do the.
That's the way it happens.
It's a break.
But if we were to get like somebody who'd been through this, or I mean, I don't know, get somebody in to tell us how to behave. That's what I'm suggesting.
Is that why people listen to this? Is it not because they can identify
all the terrible things, like
their bad traits?
Like I was thinking this morning how terrible a person I am. So my wife generally doesn't work on a Thursday, but she had to go in this morning for an hour. An hour, she told me. And I wasn't out late last night, but I was still a bit tired. So I got up, off she goes. So this is like 8:20. So an hour to me would suggest she'd be back by 9:20. Well, it's like 11:15. I'm like, what the hell?
You had to babysit your own child for 2 hours.
What what I would have done in that circumstance, I would have dropped a text and said, listen, I'm at home here. And
but in my head, I'm like, this is like, I can't even do it this morning. I hadn't planned for this. I thought you were just going to be gone for an hour. I had no plans.
Well, exactly.
I might have liked to go back to bed for an hour, which I don't think would have been acceptable. And
Well,
then,
you only had the baby.
then I only had the baby, but she's gone with the car. She'd gone with the buggy. There was no preparation made in advance of this.
thoughtless.
I need to be well organised.
Yeah, I mean, you could have put her in a sling.
And then obviously what I did was I came into work and left her now until 10 o'clock tonight with 3 children. And not a care in the world.
no feeling of guilt.
Which makes me a terrible person, I think it's fair to say.
But that's the...
What sort of, when she came home, what did you say to her?
Oh, nothing. I just like...
Oh, Nathan, good
I
to
was
see you.
grand
How
by
are you?
then.
I'm fine, yeah.
I was grand by then.
No problems here.
That's an hour, is it?
Oh, what time is it?
Yeah. Where have you been? Amsterdam? What? Bloody hell.
I mean, I thought that bit was interesting. That bit of the email. Your man's like, I blindly was like, yeah, it's all grand. It's like,
The truth is overrated.
That's a good sign of the relationship that he feels he can... He knows better now. He feels that he can divulge.
It wasn't the truth, but what he thought was their relationship.
I just mean more... I mean more the openness.
It wasn't his stag, but someone still bought him a lap dance.
that bit of the story also is like, it doesn't quite check out there, you know, you're like...
Rationalising.
I didn't want to, but they forced me to go in and paid for it for me, randomly. Like, really?
I didn't enjoy
Let's dig
it.
a bit deeper into this email, actually. This guy's got a lot of questions to answer.
It's like...
Well, sorry.
Bill
I
Clinton,
was
I
wondering
didn't
how we
inhale.
could get judgy, and I think we've just evidenced that.
Right. This is a short podcast this week. Have you got anything for us?
Have I got anything for you right now? No, I don't
My
think so.
child's potty mouth continues,
Oh, great.
and he's now doing things like in public saying, "My dad uses bad language," which is not great. Like, do you know what
You
it's
do.
bad.
You said this is no big deal,
I
Adrian.
do,
This
and
is-
I don't know if I still feel
This was your story.
anymore. Yeah. And he's still doing the thing of pointing at people. Why is that woman, like right in her face? Why is that woman coming out of that shop? I'm not really
That's
sure.
not too bad. It's like...
Yeah, I thought it was going to be worse.
Oh no, it can.
Well, it could
can-
escalate rapidly, I guess.
There isn't. He obviously has no sense. He's 3. He has no sense of what he's saying. It could literally be anything.
What about the coronavirus, lads? You had a little meltdown I saw online the other night.
I thought I was making some good salient points. Wouldn't it be better to tell us all where it is so that we can all then avoid those
This
places?
is the counter argument, not that if you start telling people exactly where, suddenly there's a pressure put on individuals.
But is there a pressure put on individuals?
We don't know.
But there is no
Doesn't know
pressure.
what it be.
Because here's the thing. These people have the flu. I'm not that interested in any stories about how you got the flu or how bad your flu is. So the people who are sick at the moment, they're in hospital with like a mild flu, right?
Not necessarily.
Almost certainly, if it's an 18-year-old, he's got to be 100% fine. The mortality rate, unless you have an underlying health condition...
Well, you don't know if the 18-year-old doesn't.
Well, if he does, then that's
It's 3.4%.
That's
Is
pretty-
that the latest WHO?
Well, if you looked at the NPR story yesterday, what they've actually managed to do now is find all the people who they didn't bother diagnosing because they have like a flu, is it coronavirus or not? I don't know, we're going to waste any money testing these people. Retrospectively, you test me, you go, oh, 1 million people had it, we thought it was only 100,000. Mortality rate drops to like much lower because we're starting to get proper figures because the data is beginning to catch up. So what's happened instead is like, it's out there somewhere. You don't know where, the time or the hour. It might be coming for you. I'm like, well, just tell us. It was literally 3 schools over from us. We had a kids' party in the area. There are siblings from our school that go to that secondary school. And you're like, we just wouldn't send... Our 5-year-old has asthma. We would have sent our 8-year-old who doesn't have asthma and said... because she'd be good enough to wash her hands and disinfect everything and would have been totally fine. The 5-year-old who currently has a bout of asthma at the moment that she's on inhalers for, I just wouldn't send her for the day.
But are you sending her to school?
We didn't Monday and Tuesday because she was sick enough not to go. But we sent her the rest of the week, yeah.
But does that not counteract everything you've just said? Because you know it's in the area.
No, because it's not. But it's not in their school.
But
so
there's nobody in her current school that has a older brother or sister, or could have come into contact with somebody.
Here's the thing, we don't know because the HSE, we have to rely on them to tell us.
Well, they're happy for you to know. They just don't want to tell you.
Well, they didn't.
Is that it?
I mean, they
we know you
they
know.
still haven't confirmed it. And that band in Clontarf, like, no, that didn't happen. Oh wait, it did. Sorry. We did send a letter to that band in Clontarf. It's like
there's a letter to a band.
It was yeah.
What band? Like
there's a school band of 15-year-olds who got a letter.
I didn't know this.
The letter was a hoax. The HSE was like, that letter's a hoax that's circulating. And our letter's like, oh, that letter wasn't a hoax. We did actually send that letter, lads. Sorry. So, like, no one is going to chase down the individual details of these people. I don't think, because they have the flu. It's only the flu.
It's a fever and a cough, as I understand it. This is the difference.
If you get the
symptoms. Differentiate.
Well,
there
was a guy on Ciara Kelly on News Talk who was like, well, I mean, you can have a fever, you can have a cough, you can have a sore throat, you can have a bit of diarrhea. It's impossible to tell unless we test.
Right.
There's a million different flus out there. Like, you can't tell.
I muted everything about coronavirus and COVID-19 on my Twitter, and it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Because I was there to my wife when she eventually arrived home today. I was like, see, I just heard on the news there, it's in Clare. And she's like, yeah, that was out yesterday. Like, it's the first time ever I've been behind on the news.
Yeah.
It's good for your mental health.
I think that, like, this has been, I think by not telling everybody what's happening and giving you accurate information, there is a small chance that you will get the flu if you go to these places on the basis of the fact that there are other people there who have in the past had the flu. If you're going in that area, be extra vigilant. Make sure because not everybody needs to be disinfecting their hands, and so there's not enough disinfectant for everybody. Like, I don't think this spreads panic if you tell people what's actually happening. I think what spreads panic is somewhere in the east there's a floating cloud of germs coming for you.
Do they not want a bit of panic because that sort of sparks people into a bit of action?
Panic costs billions.
And they are aware.
And people's jobs. Like, this is getting to the point where enough stuff is going to be cancelled, people stop spending money, people's jobs will be lost and the economy will contract. And then everybody being pissed off about the fact that there's a flu ends up being more serious than actually people got the flu. So here's the thing, if you have an underlying medical condition and in the area that there is something, you will know, I'm going to stay in for a couple of days, right? Because I'm at risk, and I'm absolutely going to make sure that but for the rest of us, if we get it, it's going to be grand. Mm-hmm. Like, my health is reasonably good. I felt sick this week. I had all the symptoms. I don't think I had coronavirus. It was like...
Did you get tested?
Almost certain, but what's the point of it?
Live in the area.
The symptoms. Well, the HSE would have told me if I'd met anybody. Their contact tracing is apparently... Mwah.
Really?
So they say.
Well, but it is quite reliant on one, obviously, large factor that might not be so accurate.
Which?
Humans' recollection of where they've been.
Well, I mean...
What did you do yesterday?
I presume they're checking phone data.
It's like the Jane Lowers.
What's this ping, what's this ping, what's this ping, no?
Oof, do you think?
Well, I would hope so. It's like right there.
It was like, where were you?
You literally turn on Google, where have I been? And flick on Google Maps. You know your Google Maps tracks everywhere you go.
I do. I just fear that in 6 months' time we'll be playing back this conversation and Ger will have infected all of us.
Well, I'm assuming that...
You've got... If I do, you'll have the flu.
And isn't it like the way the trajectory is going? It's the Glasnevin or the Clare or
20 to 60% of the population are going to get it. That's the spread. It's a big old spread at the moment. Yeah. But
so like those cases are not going to be, you shut down that whole area, because it'll be in pretty much every area.
So there's a chance to contain it now or not, and they're saying that our plan is to contain it, but it seems like they're actually not using
we're in
that
a
plan.
Containment phase. Like, it's a great old expression.
Yeah,
don't quite know what it means.
It's a definite reminder of how terrible boys are at cleaning their hands.
Oh my God!
I'm like,
don't touch your face. It's like, yeah.
See that video of the woman that was reading? Did you see that? This woman, she was reading a statement about like what you should do. It was in the States, whatever. There was one of these press conferences. She was like going through all the detail of, don't touch your eyes, don't touch your nose, don't touch your mouth. and then licked her finger to turn the page on the...
It's
Almost as good as Boris Johnson saying, I was in this hospital, I went around, I shook hands with all these patients.
Everyone, run for your lives.
the Trump one was I haven't touched my face in weeks, followed by like clip of him touching his face. Like
I'm the greatest non-touch facer in the planet. There's nobody better than me.
Our school, we were finishing up now, so I'll talk about this properly the next time. But our school had one of those speakers in. You went to see one of those the internet safety people.
Yes.
Did she show you a video from Grand Theft Auto? Was that the?
No. It was a man.
All right. So.
So no.
So my wife came and was like, "Oh, they showed us a clip of Grand Theft Auto where."
Can I get a PlayStation?
No, it was a man pulls up, hires a sex worker. She performs oral sex on him. He gets out of the car, beats her to death, and takes the money off her. And she was like, yeah, so your kids, their older siblings are playing this. And everybody in the room was apparently like,
Wow.
it's pretty violent. You can look it up on YouTube. It's there.
And what was the point? I mean, sorry.
The point is that this is the violence that your kids are being exposed to by the older siblings, the 7 and 8 year olds. Wow. And how do you know what they're doing when they're sitting there in the game playing games? I was like, I didn't know Grand Theft Auto was that violent.
Oh, yeah. He's played in college. There's a lot of gore and murder. That's the aim of it. Kill lots of people. It was more drugs then, I think.
So it's not like snakes on a plane then?
This is Grand Theft Auto 5, I think.
Right.
It's not actually about Grand Theft Auto, it's about murdering.
It used to be. No, there's quite a bit of Grand Theft Auto. But
Seems kind of unnecessary.
But that's what lads at that age want.
Do you think it has an impact on their ability?
Oh.
Do you think? For empathy,
in terms of how they turn out, like your man here was like pointing at the watch earlier on, like, where is she? Why is she not home yet? Having played a lot of Grand Theft Auto in college by his own admission.
I think Football Manager did more harm to me than Grand Theft Auto.
I think we could all agree with that.
Right, that's this week's show. Another one in the books. DADCAST at offthewall.com for your considered emails. If you'd like to get in touch with you, you can use the hashtag DADCAST or indeed at DADCASTpod on Twitter. We'll see you very soon, hopefully next week.